what I heard yesterday that is concerning is that now, and this is from the Secretary of the Treasury, Bessent. He was on with Larry Kudlow on Fox News or Fox Business. And basically he said that President Trump will have the power now to tell its allies, i.e. countries like Japan, South Korea, and even its European allies, what to do with their surplus dollar reserves. Thursday, August 14th, 2025, Maneco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. We're going to look at August 15th, 1971. Yes, tomorrow is the anniversary. And when that happened and what happened on August 15th, 1971, well, President Nixon directed the U.S. Treasury to suspend the convertibility of the American currency, aka the dollar, into gold at a fixed price. And he said it was going to be temporary. And at the time, I mean, I was alive, but I was only about 6 or 5 years old, and I didn't know the repercussions of it, and I think most people didn't. But basically, it was a default. Yes, it was a default by the U.S. Treasury. And if you had trusted the United States government to keep your reserves with them at the Treasury, you would have lost out. You would have lost out on converting those reserves into real money, into liquidating that debt. Of course, nowadays you can buy gold with dollars and other currencies, but it's a completely different thing. It's not fixed at a rate. Of course, what Nixon did was upend 1,000 years of like when major reserve currencies were real money, i.e. gold and silver. Yes, it was truly historic. And I think we have another truly historic moment. It was announced yesterday. Yes, it was announced yesterday, August 13th, by the Secretary of the Treasury. And I don't think, or hopefully, people are waking up to the fact that it's a very serious statement, and it's to do with sovereign nations' dollar reserves, treasury reserves, and I think it's very serious, and that's what we're going to look at today. And before we do, though, just want to give a shout out to Dirty Men Safe. We've been affiliated with them for a couple of years, and it's getting serious. It usually comes from the top. The confiscation. We saw Russia's reserves being confiscated. We're seeing here in the UK, they're going to come after your bank accounts, the government, in about 18 months, April 2027, to check that you've paid all your taxes, and they're going to take money from your account. They want to take even more via inheritance tax. So, and we've got a president in the U.S. who's using executive orders to basically, yeah, we're going to see what he wants to do. So, Dirty Men Safe, people laughed a little bit about this affiliate a couple of years ago, but they're not laughing anymore because it's not just protection against burglars and criminals, petty criminals out there. It's against government as well. Yes, unfortunately, government, the purpose of government should be to protect the individual and the individual's self, the individual's body and property, but it's been turned upside down. Government is acting like a criminal. But anyway, Dirty Men Safe helps you hide, secure, and retrieve your valuables with ease. And yeah, you go underground for the ultimate safekeeping concealment solution of portable assets in the U.S. today. And it's not only in the U.S. that they ship to the UK and Europe. So I have a link below in the description, and you can have a look. There are different sizes of the Dirty Men safe, and you get 10% off if you use my link. So back to August 15th, 1971. Yes, tomorrow will be the 54th anniversary. And we also have the meeting between President Trump and President Putin in Alaska. There's a lot of speculation about what's going on there. One of the theories actually that I wanted to talk about that sounds interesting is that President Trump and Putin are going to decide to build some kind of tunnel between Alaska and Russia's eastern part there through the Bering Strait, and basically connect North America and Asia. That would be huge. I think that would be a big loss for Europe, especially the Anglo Empire, the British Empire. They don't want to see that at all. So that's interesting. I know it's being portrayed as a peace summit to end the war in Ukraine, and they might very well do so. But anyway, back to the real topic here. What I wanted to compare here is the fact, or emphasize, is that on August 15th, 1971, very few people, I think, realize how momentous that decision was to take, to basically default. The U.S. defaulted. And you might ask, what are you talking about? Well, from 1944 until August 15th, 1971, the deal via the Bretton Woods Agreement was that if I was a country A, and I had dollar reserves, I could go to the treasury and extinguish that debt that the U.S. had with you by turning over the bond or the currency, and they would give me 1 ounce of gold for every $35. So the announcement was on a Sunday, August 15th. So those kinds of things always happen on a weekend, and it could happen to individuals as well. I mean, the Trump administration are doing so many things that are extraordinary that you never know. But what I heard yesterday that is concerning is that now, and this is from the Secretary of the Treasury, Bessent. He was on with Larry Kudlow on Fox News or Fox Business. And basically he said that President Trump will have the power now to tell its allies, i.e. countries like Japan, South Korea, and even its European allies, what to do with their surplus dollar reserves. Yes, President Trump will tell each country, you got to put that money in this industry, and so on and so forth. Why is that serious? Well, it's akin to you working hard all your life and having a big account with the bank, like $1 million or £1 million, and then the bank via the government comes to you and says, well, you've got too much money in the bank. We need to redirect those funds into infrastructure projects by the government, and you won't be able to do anything about it. That's what it is. So what would I do as an individual if I knew that was going to happen? Well, I would try to liquidate as much as those of those reserves that I have in the bank, or currency, or not real money, right? I would try to convert as much of those as possible before they stop me into real money, i.e. gold and silver, physical outside the system, and I'd find a really good private vault where I could hide that, or even a few dirty men safe, depending on how big a property you live on and how safe it is. Yeah, and bury it and hide it. And I think the same thing applies for these nations, these sovereign countries. Of course, these countries, Korea, Japan, they're occupied countries, right? And I'm not having a go at America here. I know what President Trump is trying to do. I think it's the wrong way to go about it, but I can see what he wants to do. He wants to bring back those excess reserves, i.e., he wants to basically default because those countries have reserves because they sold a lot more to the U.S., so the U.S. had to borrow. The U.S. has been living as a government and as a country beyond its means. So the solution to this problem, in my opinion, the free market solution would be to abolish the Federal Reserve and let interest rates float in a free market. And what would probably happen would be that you'd have a major recession, if not sharp depression, like they used to have prior to the Federal Reserve. You had like 1-2 year depressions, and that would solve the problem of trade and current account deficits very quickly. Americans would start spending less and producing more. But President Trump is trying to do it via diktat. Those kind of actions never work. The free market is usually the best way to do it. But anyway, yeah, that's going to happen. Going to be happening to sovereign nations, especially the ones that are allied to the United States, because you can bully your ally more than you can bully a country like China. I'm going to play now the clip where Bessent says that Trump basically now is in charge of your reserves. Mr. Japan, Mr. South Korea, Mr. Germany, Mr. UK. Yes, Trump is in charge of it. So let's hear it.
Have these agreements in place where the Japanese, the Koreans, and to some extent the Europeans will invest in companies and industries that we direct them largely at the president's discretion.
And how does that work? I mean, it's almost like an offshore appropriation. I'm not sure we've ever had anything like that in the States before.
So there you go. Very serious, I think. Is this going to be another trigger for the gold market? I think so. Not that the gold market needs any more triggers. I mean, it looks like the Fed is going to cut rates despite the fact that the core CPI is above 3%. And even Mr. Bessent said recently that rates should be 1.5 to 1.75% lower. Well, that's going to trigger even more of a consumer credit led boom in the US. What's that going to do to Americans' habits? Well, they're going to continue buying stuff that they can't afford. They're going to keep indebting themselves. And that's actually probably going to make the trade deficits and current account deficits worse, despite the fact that the tariffs are actually bringing in some funds to the treasury. It's crazy what they're doing, in my opinion. I'm not gonna sit here and say that everything President Trump is doing is perfect. I'm not gonna be I'm not gonna be uncritical of him. I'm gonna tell it like I think. I could be completely wrong. Maybe they've got some magic potion there that they can change things, but in my way of thinking and in the way of free market economics, There's no such thing as a free lunch. If you alienate the people that lend you money by actually defaulting and telling them what they can do with the money that they lent to you, they're going to change their habits. And I think maybe South Korea, Japan, and the EU, European allies might not be able to change it so drastically because they're literally under the gun, right? But other countries that are not as beholden to the US, they're going to see this, and the BRICS movement is going to accelerate. And yes, hold on to your hats. And I see that the stock market yesterday continued to go a lot higher. I think we have a melt up. Yes, there are a lot of measures and like stuff out there that points to a massive bubble in the stock market, but it keeps going higher. I personally think it could be the crack up boom or melt up. Someone asked, what's a melt up? Well, it's when there's so much inflation in the system, the currency and credit is going through the roof, a lot of money printing, that people realize it will never stop. And what they want is anything but the currency. So they'll buy anything that has some value, like companies in the stock market, like gold and silver, like commodities, anything that can't be created out of thin air. So these are very interesting times, and coupled with this new paradigm of where President Trump basically is going to direct the sovereign wealth funds of foreign nations into what they should do. He's going to be a sovereign fund managers for foreign countries. Makes no sense whatsoever. And I think it's just as significant as what happened 54 years ago tomorrow, when Nixon defaulted on U.S. debt. Basically, he defaulted. Trump is doing the same thing, or as I think Vince Lency said, is a debt for equity swap. Foreigners, instead of having debt, U.S. debt, will have equity. But that's what happened in Cyprus when the banking system collapsed there. A lot of depositors who had over 100,000 in a bank, they lost that debt. It was a debt to the bank, a credit to them. And what did they give them? Well, they gave them equity in crappy banks. So, yeah, foreigners are gonna get equity in the U.S. economy that isn't really doing that great. It's an economy based on credit and consumption. We're gonna look at the markets now. It's almost 8 a.m. London time. Yes, we had some UK GDP data. Yeah, they were a little better than the last couple of months, but they're still anemic. I see GDP is only growing at like 1.4% a year here in the UK, and I bet those numbers are doctored. It's probably more like 0, and if you include government spending, which is going through the roof, if you deduct that from GDP because it's included there, government spending, I bet that GDP would be negative. So I'm sorry to say, things are not improving in the UK. We'll probably be, along with Japan, one of the first Western countries to fail. And by failing, I mean basically default. Yeah, so we've got spot gold trading at 33.61, up $5. High's been 75, lows 53. Silver did fairly well yesterday, but we still got a resistance around 38.50 or 60. We've been as high as 75 today. It's looking better. The stock market, as I said, I think the Dow was up over 1% yesterday. Right now, it's basically unchanged. The currencies as well are pretty steady. Yes, it's quite early, but one thing I would note is that the dollar index had rebounded since the beginning of July. We went from like a low of 96.40 to just above 100 back in the end of July. And now, though, it's keeling back over, keeling down. And we need to keep an eye on it. Yes, with that, I'm going to wish you all a very good day. Take care. Bye.